So thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Today we're going to be covering all things selections. Abby and my name is Katie, my colleague Abby is here as well. We are both on the product marketing team. So we work closely with our customers, with our builders to understand how you're using Houzz Pro and get your feedback to make sure really that we're building the best features for you to use. And Abby is she lives and breathes in our selections features, so she's going to be going through all the demos here. A few just little housekeeping tips. Again, feel free to log into your Houzz Pro account so you can follow as we're going through. If you have any questions throughout, you can put them into the chat or into the Q&A tab, and then we'll address them as we go through. And we will be sharing a recording of this as well afterwards, so don't feel like you need to take notes on everything. So with that, Abby, I will hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. I will take over and share my screen with y'all. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm super excited. Like Katie mentioned, I am very, very passionate about the selections tools in Houzz Pro. So I am excited to teach you some of the tips and tricks with our selections. So I'm going to kind of set the stage here by diving into the structure and the foundation of the entire selections process. So there are two ways that you can kind of organize your overall catalog inside Houzz Pro. You can do that by using categories, or you can do that by using cost codes. Now, there's two different approaches, and under company and library, you'll either see categories or you'll see cost codes. You can use either or, and just depending on your business and what you have set up, you might see one or the other set up inside your library here. Now, what's important about categories or cost codes is that these are really the building blocks for how you're tracking your selections and tracking your job costing throughout the project, right? And so if you see here, I have all of my categories, my cost codes set up in the phases of construction. And right here under plumbing, for example, I have my plumbing fixtures. Very helpful for me in the selections process to organize all my plumbing fixtures together, right? And so setting that foundation in either your category system or your cost code system is going to be crucial for you to use that later on in your selections process. Now, the other layer of this is your actual items, right? Inside your library under company and my items, you have access to all of the items that you've ever created inside Houzz Pro. So all of your material items, all of your labor items, material and labor combined items, products, services, assemblies, etc. The focus of the conversation today is going to be about the products, right? So the actual finishes that you're selecting and running through the selections process. Now, you'll note right here, we have each item, and then I also have my cost code listed. If you're on the category system, you'll see your categories listed here. And what this page is going to do for you is allow you to, one, come in here and clean up anything that may have been saved to the wrong category or cost code, and two, maybe delete things that you don't want anymore. So you're going to want to use this page on a semi-regular cadence just to make sure that all of the things that you're working with are tracking to the right place. Now, this is company-wide. My items span the entire company and are not for a specific project. And then when you're on the actual project itself, you get more granular and you actually adjust the item just for that one specific project. So just to kind of paint the picture, if these items aren't set up right in the selections process, once you get into things like the selections tracker, it's really not going to work super well unless you've really set this foundation up super strong. The cleaner your inputs are here, the better your outputs are going to be later on down the line, the better your job costing is going to be, etc. Now, let's take a look at one other foundational item here while we're under company. I want to take a look at templates. So selection board templates are something newer to Houzz Pro, but something that can be really, really powerful for you in developing a selections process that works for your company. So under templates, I'm going to go to selection boards. Now, under selection boards, this is going to give me any of the templates that I've already created. So let me show you kind of what that looks like on an existing selection board. And so I'll show you also what it looks like to create one new. So for example, you can create these templates by room. So under kitchen, I have loaded in what is called placeholders for all of the items that I know need a client decision based off of what room this is. So I know I need island lights, can lights, a dishwasher, a vent hood or a vent hood liner, kitchen range, etc. Now, how did I get these little placeholder items onto this specific selection board template? Up in the top right-hand corner under my items, I can create new placeholders. Now, when I do that, I can set up all the standard information that you do when you're usually clipping an item or saving an item to your library. And then AI will help you create that cute little thumbnail image. So it makes things super easy. We'll dive into more of that in just a few minutes. But for purposes of this discussion, this is kind of what's possible with that template, right? So you're kind of setting the foundation of everything that might need to be selected based off of the scope of the project, right? And so these templates you're going to want to use for creating that repeatable process. So every time I do a kitchen, I need X. Every time I do a bathroom, I need Y, right? And so you're able to kind of customize this and make it look different. Now you can approximate what the quantity is or what you're anticipating to spend every time, especially if you're doing kind of similar price point projects or similar price point homes. You can kind of set an early dart for what you usually want to spend for those items, but you can also adjust that on the project level as well. So this is one that's kind of built out for me already, but creating a new one is super, super easy. So let's go back to the template selection board page and you just hit create new template. Now you can name this whatever you would like to. If you're doing, for example, new construction and you want a board for just all the plumbing fixtures and you kind of know loosely, it's usually 2 bed, 2 bath, right? You can kind of create a board according to that and then name it accordingly, right? I can do plumbing fixtures for a 2 bed, 2 bath house. You can save that and then build in placeholders that you need accordingly. So for example, it's going to go ahead and pop up. I can pull in placeholders. I do have some existing things that I've already loaded in here. And so for sure, I'm going to do a pot filler. I'm going to need a kitchen faucet, etc. I can just click and use any of the placeholders that I've already created. You don't have to make new ones every single time. The next piece of this is that you can also create sections. So if you need subsections within that, you can group things accordingly, drag them into the appropriate section, and really organize what this template is going to look like. And so then you can apply that to all of your future projects. I'm going to pause there. Katie, do we have any questions coming in so far?
Yes, there was one question from Eric. He's asking whether it's possible to get the placeholders in a library. He said the AI image generation is sometimes inconsistent based on what you feed it, basically.
Yeah, you can definitely tweak around with what input you're putting in. What I will suggest is that you can also create your own placeholder images. So you can use AI, and we'll definitely share that feedback with our AI team that the consistency isn't great for you. But you can also upload your own. So if you know that these are the 10 things that I need an image for, and you want to make those graphics yourself or pay somebody even on Fiverr to make them for you so that they look like your brand, you could totally do that and just use your own image. With the AI generation of it, it is going to be dictated by what you put in this field. I will say that something that I do is tweak, kind of like when you're on ChatGPT and you can kind of tweak your input to get what you want. You can tweak this name to get what you want and then change the name after it creates the image back to what you want it to be moving forward. So I will say that can help in some of those cases, or you can have those made and upload them and reuse them forever.
Awesome. And then just one follow-up. How do you get those placeholders into your items list?
Yeah, so up in the top right-hand corner under create, so this is specifically on a template, right? I'm gonna go to placeholder right here and I can create those placeholders right here. Now, like I said, this is from inside my actual template. You can also do it under company, my items, and create your placeholders right here. So create new placeholder if you just wanna go through the list and make 20 of them at once, right? You can go down the line and make them from this page, and you can also do it on the actual project, which I'll show you in a few minutes.
Awesome, thanks. That's all the questions.
Perfect. Okay, so now I am actually going to move things over into estimates. Now, this is something that's relatively new to Houzz Pro, but one of the ways that you can structure your selection boards now is by allowance, which is really, really exciting, really awesome stuff. So I'll take a walk through what that kind of looks like. We're not doing a deep dive on estimates today. We are focusing on it as it pertains to selections. So what are allowances? Allowances in Houzz Pro are really connecting your original estimate to selections. So that way those two things are tied together. So what dollar amount you specify for plumbing fixtures now pushes over into your selection board. So it makes sure that you're on track with what you're spending. And then if there are any overages, that you can create a change order for that overage and collect that money collect the money for the difference from your customer. So for example, this line item here, plumbing fixtures, I've gone ahead and set this as an allowance because I know that I need client decisions on plumbing fixtures. So you can see a couple of things here. This allowance overview on the hover is going to show me how much has been spent so far, how much it's over, what the original estimated cost was going to be. Is this allowance still open or all of the decisions final? What's the due date for this allowance? And then also a quick link to take me to the board of all the plumbing fixtures for this project. Now, this is an example of a completed one. I want to show you how you get to that point as well. So let's take a look at tile, for example. I have a line item for tile and stone materials. I'm going to go all the way over to the right on my 3 dots, and then I'm going to choose set as allowance item. Now, the allowance name and the price are pulling from that estimate. So that dollar value is tethered from the estimate. It's not something that can be changed on the selection board. It is only going to be able to be edited from the estimate if the estimate is not approved. So now this is where I'm going to set a due date, for example, the tile I need by this date. Like I said, the cost and the markup are tethered to the estimate. You can also assign who you want to work on this, if there's a specific designer on your team that you want working with on it, etc. And then under board specifications, there's 2 different options here. The first option is going to be creating placeholders for you automatically based off of the item quantity. So for example, if the way that you estimate is maybe by room, right? And you have plumbing fixtures for bath 2, right? You can go ahead and create a placeholder for 4 plumbing fixtures for bath 2. Or if you get even more granular than that and you have toilet bath 2, you can go ahead and create a placeholder for toilet for bath 2. And so that's what that functionality is going to do for you. It will auto create that placeholder for you. And then below that is going to be an option to show the unit cost. So what your hard cost is, or if you want to show cost plus markup, you wouldn't want to check that. So you can kind of pick and choose which direction you want to take this. So now when I hit create on this tile and stone material board, it is going ahead and creating a selection board for me. And you can keep going down the line, making the rest of your selection boards, or you can go ahead and go view what this selection board looks like. So now it has created a blank selection board for me. Now, earlier I showed you what templates look like. You could have also started from a template. So if there's standards that you know that you need every time for tile and stone, you can kind of build up what those standards are using templates and start from there. But alternatively, if you are starting from scratch, you can pull from your placeholders library from right here as well. So for example, if you want to do a floor plan review and you sit down and you say, okay, I have 6 bathrooms that need tile, the laundry room needs tile, the mudroom needs tile, etc. You can go down the line and create one that's fully custom for your project with all of the placeholders. So for example, I have these items in my placeholder library. I need bathroom floor tile for sure. I need that in bath 1, bath 2, and bath 3, right? So I'm going to create a new section, bath 1. Then I'm going to pull that in there because I know I need a selection for that. Then I'm going to create another section for bath 2. And I know that I'm going to need bathroom floor tile in there as well. And so I can pull that in as well. And then you just kind of keep going down the line and adding things in. I know that I'm going to need backsplash tile for the kitchen. So I can pull in my backsplash tile placeholder. And so you can kind of see how this is helping you build up kind of what you're anticipating to spend on an even more granular level here. So a couple of things can be done here as well. So if you want to get into the actual specifics, right, you can click this information icon and then come down and adjust. Maybe you know you need 150 square feet of kitchen backsplash tile. And you actually don't want to spend that amount. You want to spend a little less. You can adjust what that is, keep your markup, and then you can kind of tweak and show exactly what you're anticipating to spend on that backsplash tile. Now, let's take an example and look at what this looks like to actually replace a placeholder. So from my items library, I am going to look at some things that I already have loaded into my system. Now, you can also replace placeholders from the Clipper, which I'll show you in a few minutes. But for purposes of this, let me just quickly show you something that I already have in my library. So right here, I want to use this Paris gray limestone as the backsplash tile, for example. So I am going to drag this over, and you'll see on hover that it says drop here to replace. So when I drop this item here, it's warning me, this is $20 more than the original cost for backsplash tile. And you can either say, okay, or oops, I should probably choose something else, right? And so once you click replace, it's going to automatically replace that item for you. And it's keeping that quantity. So it still knows that you need the 150 square feet of it. So it's going to allow you to kind of build in some of those fail safes up front. So that way, when the design team is working on it, they can actually make educated selection decisions when they're working with the customer. So this is just one example of a selection board and kind of what it looks like to start one directly from an allowance. Now, I want to move over to one that's a little bit more built up so you can kind of see how this progresses as your project progresses. Katie, do we have any questions before I dive into that piece?
Nope, no questions.
Okay, cool, awesome. So I've moved into my plumbing fixtures board, which is one that we looked at just a second ago from the estimate. And I've got really actual finishes going on inside my selection board, right? So let me orient you to a couple of things. So up at the top left, I can see that this allowance is still open. The approval status is going to help me to see a list of everything that's approved, declined, etc. And you can also use the filter to view just specific types of things. Now, over on the right-hand side, we have a lot of different options up here. That due date that you entered in on the estimate is going to be available here. So if anything does need to change, you can always shift it from right here. And if it's past due, for example, let's move it back to a couple days ago, it's going to appear in red for you to let you know that this is past due. This information icon is going to help you to be able to make tweaks to the overall board. So if you need to rename the board, change who's assigned to it, etc., you can change all that there. And then there's also an activity stream. So if you want to see what's been approved, declined, exactly when that happened, you have insight into that as well. So if the client says, I didn't approve that, you can show them exactly when it happened. Finalize and create, I'll come back to in a few minutes, as well as preview and share. Now, beneath that, this is the link to the original estimate that this allowance board was created from. And then next to that is the real-time tracking of what's happening on this allowance, right? And in this settings icon, you can change as well if you want it to be showing by cost or by the selling price. And so you can tweak that right there. But again, you won't be able to edit the total cost because that is coming from the original estimate. Now, a couple of things here in this information icon, it's going to show you a breakdown of exactly what's being spent, what the markup is, all of the different sections and what's being spent by section as well. So you can kind of get super granular about where the expenses are going and why. And then we can kind of move down the page a little bit now. So you can see here that I have this specific selection board for plumbing fixtures organized by room. So I have all of the plumbing in my kitchen, all of the plumbing in my primary bathroom, all of the plumbing in my powder bathroom, guest bathroom, etc., organized into sections. Now, you may have seen it earlier, but in between all of the sections, once you start adding items, you're going to see this little icon on hover. So you can create new sections from anywhere and kind of build them however you would like. So when I hit create new section, I can label that anything that I want. And I can also add a descriptive text under it if I need to explain something to the client. Now, this color icon can be super helpful if you want to, for example, organize certain things in one color and certain things in another color. You can tweak that. You can also pull in one of your, like a deck of your brand colors and then tweak to make sure that you have your actual brand colors in here. You can kind of make this your own. So getting items into these selection boards, that is one of the most important pieces of this, right? How do I actually build my selections library? Now, hopefully some of you have already used the Houzz Pro Clipper tool, but if you haven't, you should because it's fantastic. But basically what the Houzz Pro Clipper tool is going to do for you is allow you to shop really anywhere that you want to on the web and source products, and then quickly scrape that page and pull down all of the product information that you need. So that way you can share that with your client. And then also so that you can share it like during the actual tracking and procurement process as well. So it's pulling this information down for you really, really quickly. So let's just take a look at how that works. So the Houzz Pro Clipper lives in my Google Chrome. It can live in your Google Chrome as well. And so this Houzz Pro Clipper is going to pop up as soon as I click that button. And let's say, for example, I want to bring in this Brizo kitchen faucet. I can just click autofill product info with AI. And what our AI does is it scrapes this web page. It's finding the images, it's finding the SKU number, the finish that I have selected, etc. So that way I can save all this information in just a couple of clicks. So way faster than the traditional method of building a spreadsheet, trying to fit an image into a cell, copying and pasting information, etc. So you're going to be able to do that much, much faster using the Clipper tool. Now, one of the most important pieces, like I said at the very beginning of this conversation, is booking it to the right cost code or the right category. So for example, here, I want to put this under plumbing fixtures. I need to put in that I'm buying this from Ferguson. And then for the project, I want to save it to the project that we are working on together. And that's going to be the Thompson residence. And then I can also choose what board I want to put it on. So I'm going to put this into the plumbing fixtures board. Now you'll see below that, it says select placeholder to replace. So when you are clipping products, you can actually go ahead and automatically replace any placeholder that you set up either on your template or in this specific project. And it'll pull a list of those up for you as well, based off of the board that you're in. Now beneath that, it's pulling some of those details in. SKU number, absolutely critical when it's time to order, what the dimensions are, what the finish is, manufacturer, etc. So now when I hit Save to Houzz Pro, this is automatically going to be available to me in this selection board for plumbing fixtures. Now I'm going to move this into my kitchen section and boom, I have access to that information right here. So what does this look like when maybe you don't have the Houzz Pro Clipper, maybe you're not on your desktop and you don't have Google Chrome on it, right? There's a couple of different things that you can do. So from your mobile phone, using the Houzz Pro mobile app functionality, if you're sourcing something on the go and you pull up this product link, for example, on your phone, you can just tap the share icon at the middle of the screen and then share that to the Houzz Pro app, and it will automatically do the exact same thing that the Clipper just did for us. It scrapes the web page for you, it pulls down all the product information and saves it directly to the project for you. So if you're on the go, it's okay. We can also support you on mobile as well. Now, let's take a look at one more way that you can bring products into your Houzz Pro projects. So I'm actually going to change the finish and then I'm going to select the URL for this web page. I'm just going to copy it and go back to my board. And now the other way that you can bring things in is by hovering between products. Now, in my opinion, this is going to be excellent for you if there's something that you want to place in a very specific place on the board. You saw when I clipped the item, it comes to the top of the page, but maybe I want this item to live right here because I want the client to see this decision next to that decision. So I'm going to click this little AI sparkle icon and paste in that product URL here. Now you have the option to save this to your library or not. So if it's something that you do anticipate using again, definitely save it to your library. And if it's something that you don't anticipate using again, you don't have to. I'm going to choose to save it to my library and then hit the import button. And again, what it is doing is using AI to scrape that URL, look for all the product information, pull down the images, pull down the SKU number, the finish, etc. And so this is a third way that you can kind of build that library and build these boards really, really quickly. The goal is for you to kind of create these boards and pull these items once and then reuse that information throughout the duration of the project. Our goal is not for you to have to re-input information over and over and over again. Our goal is for you to be able to do that once and then kind of keep going from there. Now, you can see this image is a little blurry. Sometimes with AI, it is experimental in nature, so you might not get the perfect image using this approach, but you can definitely tweak, adjust, and pull in exactly what you want. So for example, I didn't love how that looked. I'm just gonna come in and pull this image in myself, so you can just come in and re-upload a different image. Now, it truly just depends on what image is available for you on the vendor's website. And so, like I said, you can kind of upload your own if you want to as well. Now, I want to go ahead and put that under plumbing fixtures. And then I know I'm buying this one from Ferguson as well. And so I can go ahead and log that information in here. And then when I hit create, it's going to save for me in that specific position that I wanted it in. Okay, any questions, Katie?
Yes, one question. Does it prevent duplicates if you're adding in multiple products?
It does not currently prevent duplicates. You can technically add in the same thing multiple times right now, but that is something that we're investigating on the product side to see how we can prevent that. So definitely something that is a work in progress.
Awesome. That is all for now. Feel free to keep adding your questions. I know Abby is doing a very thorough job, but we're happy to answer anything.
Yes, for sure. Okay, let's move into the real fun of this is sharing it with our clients, right? So we've clipped all the information. We've built a really beautiful board. Maybe we've added in 3D floor plans. We can pull those in. If we're doing mood boards, we can bring mood boards into this actual board, or you can bring in files or images. Maybe there's an inspiration image that they really loved. You could pull that into this board as well, or cabinet drawings, for example. You could bring that file type in and put this in the board. So that way this becomes a real approval dashboard for them to kind of get everything that they need in one specific place. So from this board, there are a couple of things, right? You can manually approve or decline these items for the client. So if you are in person with the client and they are looking at finishes in your office and making decisions, they don't even have to see the Houzz Pro dashboard. You can kind of go through and make those decisions with them. Now, alternately, I know not every decision can be finalized in a 1-2 hour meeting, right? And so you can also send a link home with them so that they can finalize decisions, whether it be all of them or just the few outstanding ones. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So up at the top right, where it says preview and share, you'll see everything that your client would have access to if you were to share this link to them, either by direct link or directly to their client dashboard. Now, over on the right-hand side, this is where you're going to customize what information you're sharing with your client. Do you want to share the item pricing? Do you want them to see the budget, how much they're over or under for that specific allowance? Do you want them to see the quantity, the product links, etc.? You can tailor this exactly to your company and exactly to how you want them to receive this information. Now, if you're sending this home with your client, they can get in here and comment. So they can ask you questions like, I like this, but does it come in silver? They can ask that question right here, and then you'll get notified on your side that you have a comment, and then you can comment back to them, and they'll receive an email notifying them to access their client dashboard and review the comment and respond there instead of texting you at 10 o'clock that they want a silver fixture instead of a black fixture, right? And so that really controls the flow of conversation for you a lot. Now, next to that is that item overview. So depending on the level of information you choose to share with them, they can view kind of a glimpse of the item that you're sharing with them. Now, if there's multiple images, they'll see all of the multiple images. And when they're ready to make a decision, they can hit the approve or the decline button. So that way they can tell you, I want to move forward with this, I don't, that sort of thing. You'll see I've already got a lot of items approved and declined in here, but it really makes things super streamlined for them to be able to go through and manage the approval process. It really helps them to feel empowered too, when you're able to share that information with them in a way that they can kind of digest and sit back at home, relax, think about it, because for them, building a house or renovating a house is a huge deal. For us, it's something that we do every day, right? We're used to this. Building a project is something we do every single day, but truly for them, it makes a huge impact. So having access to this information is really, really invaluable to them for sure. Now, a couple more things that I forgot to cover on the individual items that you see here. So up at the top of each item, you notice that we have the information icon, the link icon, the commenting icon, one for specifications, and then also the 3 dots icon. So the information icon is giving you all the images that are being used, what the title is. You can make adjustments. If maybe you didn't put in who you're purchasing this from, you can tweak that. I know I'm going to buy this from Ferguson. You can adjust, maybe you want to change how things are worded, etc., as well as things like the selling quantity, what your markup is, etc. You can change all of that from that information icon. Now, this product link is going to be really helpful for you if you need to know, for example, for a range, where does the gas line need to go? All of those things, you can click, go back to the manufacturer's website and see the technical specs in just a quick click of a button. The comment, pretty self-explanatory. Like I mentioned, if your client comments when you do share this with them, that's going to come through on this client feed. And then there's also going to be a team feed. So if you and your team need to have a private conversation from the client, you can have that under the team feed as well. Specifications, that's going to pull everything that was clipped that is specification wise. So like dimensions, the finish, materials, etc., into one tidy place for you. And then that 3 dots menu is going to help you to kind of make changes to what the board looks like. So if I want this to be prioritized and larger on the screen, I can tweak that. I can also make it smaller, adjust the image width, etc. Add to section is going to help you if you clip something and it comes to the top of the page and you want to move it down to a specific section. You can either drag and drop or use this add to section functionality. You can also do things like hide certain things from the client. Maybe you don't need them to see something specific for the tile, right? You don't need them to see what the grout is. You're good. You can hide that from the client. You can also duplicate items, move items around, or remove them from the board, or delete them from the entire project. So that's going to give you access to all of that information right here. Okay, Katie, any questions?
Yes, one question. Can a client change their mind if they approve something and then decide that they want to decline or vice versa?
Yeah, so as it stands today, the client can go back in and they can go back and decline something. We're building some parameters on that this quarter, though, to help manage that flow. So that way you can more so dictate whether or not they can come back in and approve and decline.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to keep going down this allowances path, and then I'm going to quickly show you what it looks like to create a board by room instead of by allowance. But let's pretend we've got all of our final decisions in place and we need to finalize this allowance. You can see right here, we are over budget, and maybe this is a fixed rate project and I need to create a change order and recuperate the difference. Now you can use this finalize and create button up at the top to go ahead and create a new change order. It is going to remind the client of all of the items that they selected when it creates this change order, and then it's going to charge them for the actual amount that's over. So what that variance item is. I find that even if you are doing cost plus, it can be helpful to create the change order. So you can absolutely create the change order as well. And then alternatively, you can merge it back into the original estimate. So if you're doing the design process before the estimate is even final, you can also merge those line items back into the original estimate. You can follow either path, and that document's going to be automatically created for you with all of the product information that was selected in the selections process. Now, moving into the other approach for selection boards, I find that some people like to work by room, some people like to work by allowance, and there's really no right or wrong answer. You can operate either way. But let's take a look at what it would look like to create a board by room. So from the board page, I'm going to click Create New, and I am going to actually use a template for this. So I have a kitchen template, and I am going to call this room kitchen. I'm going to do it myself. So I'm going to give this to myself. And then when I hit create, it's going to use that kitchen template that I already set up, bring in all of my placeholders, create all my sections, etc. for me. So it's gone ahead and created everything. Now you'll notice here, my sections aren't rooms. My sections are actually the trades. What electrical fixtures are being used in the kitchen? What appliances are being used in the kitchen? Backsplash, countertops, plumbing, etc. I've broken out my sections this way. Now, you can also set a room budget for this overall kitchen if you'd like. So maybe if you're just doing a kitchen and you know that you're going to spend $15,000 on finishes, you can put that dollar value in. You can also get more granular in the section and put a budget for the section. So in the kitchen for electrical, I want to spend $2,500. I can set a budget for just that. And then I can also, I forgot to actually type in as I was going. I can also kind of go down the line and track the budget. So it's tracking the budget here for me. It's tracking a budget here for me. And then also I have individual budgets on my actual placeholders. So again, that placeholder flow is very, very easy. I'm going to go to my cost code for lighting. I'm going to go to my decorative light fixtures and see what I have in here. And then I can use this and pull that in to replace that original placeholder. Now, you saw what I just did right there. I used my filters and I used my cost code. If you have categories, you could also use categories. Now, this goes back to the very beginning of our call. It's super important to organize things well up front so that way you can benefit from it later. You can reuse things, like oftentimes the same toilet or the same faucets or the same sinks are used over and over. And so inputting that once and then using your library to your advantage only saves you time and money. So now let's replace that with that pendant. And so you can kind of get the picture of exactly how this process works. I'm going through making selections, pulling in, replacing, etc. And then it's really giving you a list of what you still need to select for the project. I'm going to stop there. Any questions before we move into the selections tracker?
Nope, no questions.
Okay, fantastic. All right, guys, I am going to move into the selections tracker. And forgive me, I'm going to get a sip of water. So the selections tracker can be used about 100 ways. If I'm honest, there are so many ways that you can use this selections tracker in your planning process, in your procurement process, and creating field ready finish schedules, etc. So let's take a look at what it looks like for the planning process, for example. Maybe you need a list of everything that has not been selected for the project yet. You can use the filters to look at just the things that are still pending. And now it's created a short list for me. Now, obviously, if there is a placeholder, then that means that decision is still pending, right? And so you can quickly create a list that you send to your client and say, hey, I don't have decisions on these things. Or if you're working with a designer, hey, I still need plumbing selections for bathroom X, right? You can kind of go through and filter to find the information that you need. Now, if that person is on your team, they're going to have access to this information already. Any update made to this is going to reflect out to everybody else in your team. But if you need to share like a list externally, for example, you can use this export button right here and export a quick list of exactly what still needs to be selected for the project. I'll dive into more of the export options in just a few minutes, but just to kind of show you what that looks like, it's giving me those items that I have and then also giving me exactly what still needs to be chosen based off of what I filtered to here. So that's one option. Another option that you can do is to actually use this to track procurement. Now, let's say I need to look at all of my approved items for this project because I need to start purchasing. Use that filter, change it to approved, And then you can also use the organize by to group, batch, and group things according. So if I need to see everything organized by vendor, all the stuff that's being bought from Ferguson, all the stuff that's being bought from another vendor, et cetera, you can kind of group and batch things that way. You'll see I'm using a ton of Ferguson in this project. So I can actually use this to my advantage, right? When I use organize by, I can go down the line and say, okay, I ordered all of this stuff from Ferguson and I need to update the order status in bulk. Now, when I check the box next to these items, I hit edit and I can say all of this has been ordered. Now, alternatively, if you've created purchase orders for these specific items, that status will automatically update. That status is going to live just over here to the right. So you'll see what's been ordered. Maybe this is back ordered. Maybe this has already been delivered and we're still waiting on some of the other things. You can kind of get super granular and track. So that way you and the rest of your team, maybe you're in the office and the guys in the field need to know, you all have access to the exact same information at all times. Now, there's a couple of different things that I want to point out to you about the selections tracker. A few things here. So you're going to have access to that same product information that I showed you on the selection boards. So you can access and adjust all of the same things from that information icon. I can also see right here that this was included on an allowance board. So I have insight into exactly how much has been spent. Are we over? Are we under? Was that selection finalized, et cetera, all from right here. This is going to be the product link, take you back to the product website. And then all of the obvious name, description, et cetera, are going to live here as well. Again, one of the most critical pieces is that actual cost code or category. That's going to live right here in this details column. Now, what does that exactly do for me, right? One of the things that you can do in the filters is filter by that cost code or category. So for example, if I need a list of all of the plumbing fixtures for the project, because my cost codes, or for example, your categories are set up appropriately, makes it really easy for me to get a list of all of the plumbing for this project. Alternatively, lighting, all of the paint, right? You can quickly create the actual finished schedules that you can use in the field just by using that filter functionality and also just by setting up your categories and cost codes appropriately. So when I filter to approved plumbing fixtures, for example, what I'm seeing on this screen here is exactly what's going to export out for me on the export. So I'm going to uncheck that guy, and then I'm going to hit this export button over here. Now, there's a few ways that you can export it. The first way on the list is by an Excel. So that's going to be more like the traditional schedule you've probably been receiving for years from designers. You can definitely go that approach if that's what you're most comfortable with. My personal favorite is the PDF version. That's going to be a comprehensive list. There's multiple items on a page. I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. The third option is going to be the tear sheet. And then the allowance report is one other item that I will circle back to in just a second. Let's take a peek at what this FF&E schedule looks like so that we can close the loop on creating a plumbing schedule. So I'm going to click download PDF FF&E schedule, and then I can tweak and adjust what information I want shown. Do I want the quantity? Do I want the actual cost? Do I want my selling cost? And then one of my favorite things to point out is down under additional info, you can include the product link and also the product link QR code. Now, those two things are coming in automatically because way back when you clipped that item. And we saved the URL for you. We saved the information and we created a QR code to that product just for you to use in the field. So when I hit download, it's creating that PDF for me. And then I can open that PDF and look at just my plumbing schedule for this project. Now you can use this a number of different ways. You can keep it on the mobile phone. And if somebody's on their phone, they can click the link to go to more information about that Toto toilet, right? If you're more of a print it out and keep a job site binder on site, no problem. You can do that as well. And then when they're going down the list, looking at all the items, they can scan the QR code for that product to take them back to that exact same product link. So they can view tech specs, install guides, etc. And so you can kind of see how this is broken up. It has all the information here. It has the room, exactly where it's being included, etc. if it's been ordered or not ordered, they'll have insight to that, what the SKU number is, etc. So it's really creating that whole schedule for you in just one click of a button. Now, something else that I'm going to go ahead and point out to you, since we've been talking a lot about allowances, that allowance report is going to be available to you both in the tracker and also in the selection boards like we looked at earlier. This allowance report is going to allow you to include as much or as little information as you want. So if you want to break down the actual items that are selected, you can bring all of the actual items into this allowance report. Or if you just want to see the high level of what you plan to spend, what you update, what's actually being spent, and what the variance is, you can show just kind of a list of that as well. So I've tailored this down. I'm going to show you what this report looks like as well, which can be super, super helpful for you, even at the beginning of the project. If you want to send your client a list of all of the allowances for the project, you can do that super quickly. Alternatively, you can use this later on down the road if you want to give them an update of where they're at in the process. It looks like that one's taken a second to download, so we'll come back to it. But you can kind of create a cut sheet for yourself of all of the allowances for that project. Now, a few other things that I want to point out to you in the selections tracker. If you need to filter to just see placeholders, you can use this item properties to see all of the placeholders for the project. Need to turn off my filters before I do that. And so you can see all of the outstanding things. So again, if you need to export a list of just the things that are outstanding placeholder wise, you can export that out. So if you want to say, hey, design team, I need to know where we're at on these 10 things. They don't have decisions. Can I have decisions by next week? You can have that conversation and have a real list of exactly what those decisions are. Now, a couple other things in the filters. So you can also filter by document status. So if you need to see just the items that have been invoiced or not invoiced, you can tweak and see exactly what you need from right here. So for example, if I convert this item into an invoice, I'm going to go ahead and convert it onto an invoice. Then it's going to go ahead and create that document for me. So that way I can bill my customer. And again, it's pulling all of that product information over. Now, when I go back to that tracker, that invoice is automatically linked for me. So it's already associated with an invoice. Alternatively, if there was a change order or a purchase order associated with that item, it would also be linked and clickable from right here. Now, let's get into the weeds about customizing this tracker, right? It can be a little overwhelming to see lots and lots of information on one screen. I don't know if you're like me, but I don't love spreadsheets, but it's definitely a helpful way to organize things, right? And so what we're looking at right now is what we call our stacked view. So what that means is we have stacked information on top of each other to save that horizontal space for you. And so you can certainly view things in this stacked format. It's a little bit like hamburger style, right? We can also switch it from this icon here into the flat view. So then it's going to break everything out for us column by column by column. So it's really splitting everything out in a much wider view. Now, additionally, we can customize columns. So if we do or don't need to see specific things, you can turn those things on and off. I don't want to see the financials. I don't want to see this. I do want to see the markup. I don't care about the profit on every single unit. Maybe I don't want to see dimensions on this view. You can tweak and adjust and view exactly what you want. Now, speaking of views, up at the top left, there's several different views. By default, you're most likely going to be on the all view. We also have a planning view, which again, tailors down the columns into what we anticipate you would need during the planning phase. The financials phase is going to show more of those financials columns. So you can see all the information that you need during the financial process, and then also procurement. So more driven around the order status. So all of that information will be available to you. And then that all view is going to give you the most comprehensive picture. It's going to have absolutely everything included in it. Now, over at the top right, there is also create view. So you can also create a custom view so that you can kind of add to this list, right? Maybe you need a specific view for, the electrical phase. You can kind of tweak and adjust and view just what you need to view then. And so you can kind of make this your own so you can see just the information that you need when you need it. Now, I think that my allowance report popped up over here. So you'll see in this little bell icon that allowance report that we created together is going to be right here. So I'm going to pull that up so you can kind of see. So now you can see what that allowance report actually looks like. It's got my plumbing fixtures. It's still open. They're due this date. This is what's been planned. This is that's the updated cost. Here's the variance. So you can see exactly what's going on. So like I mentioned at the beginning of the project, if you need a list of all of the allowances for this project, you can create one in just a couple of clicks just by setting the items as allowance line items in that estimate. Now, I've talked a ton about allowances today, obviously, but you do not have to operate that way. If that's not the way that your company works, that is totally fine. You can still organize boards any way that you want, right? We can also organize them all by room. That is completely fine. And you won't have to use the full allowance flow. You won't have to finalize and create change orders for those allowances, et cetera. It really depends on how your unique business works. And so either method is going to be completely appropriate. The biggest thing that I want to paint the picture of is that, starting with the right foundation, having really strong categories or cost codes set up so that way you can use that information later on is going to set you up for success when you're clipping, when you're adding to your boards, when you're exporting and creating those field ready finished schedules, et cetera. Those categories and cost codes are everything. They really, really help you throughout the process. Okay. I know that was a lot. There's a ton of information there. Do we have any questions that we want to go through?
Yes, we have a few questions.
Okay.
One question from Jody. Can you see what other projects you've used that specific item in if you're using the same item in multiple projects?
That's a great question. You cannot see other projects that item has been used in, but you can definitely, I'm trying to think of how you could do that. Let me see. Off. Let's see if this works. Okay. So it's not going to tell you if it's been used on selection boards. It would tell you if you've used it on another invoice. For example, I searched for that P-off chandelier. So using that search icon is what kind of looks across all of your projects and finds things, but it looks like the selection board, it has not included exactly where it's at. But that's definitely something that we could consider incorporating into this search.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you for the feedback. And then one question from Russ. Can you elaborate a little bit more about the difference between merging versus change orders? Like if you merge, does that allow for any remaining, budget to go towards another allowance?
So it does not allow you to push a remaining allowance onto another line item? That's a great question and something that we kind of need to figure out. So I'd love to talk to you more about that. Right now, what it's going to do is it's going to kind of just push the information back, but it's not really like making a fungible credit, if that makes sense. So right now, when I hit finalize and create, it's telling me what's over. If I was under, for example, you can still merge that back, but it's not going to create a credit for them. So that's something that we need to figure out for sure. Like I mentioned, allowances is a newer functionality for us. It is actually in beta still. So if you don't have access to it today, definitely ping us and we can get you added into it. But let's definitely discuss that, Russ, because I would love to know what you would like it to be and how we can improve it to make that work for you.
Awesome. I think that is it. Let me just check if anything else. Another question from Catherine. If you change the price of an item in one project, does it then populate to other projects where it's being used?
So pricing is a great question. So if you adjust it on a project level, it does not adjust to other projects. But if you adjust it at the company my items level, then it will be updated for you to use on your future projects. So I recommend making major pricing adjustments. Like if it's, hey, all of this stuff went up 10%, go to my items and adjust those items. But if you're adjusting it on an individual project level, it's going to be specific to that project. So if I tweak exactly what the cost of this item is, it's not going to reflect in my library for future projects.
Awesome. That is all the questions we have. We still have a few more minutes if anyone wants to add anything. Otherwise, you can always follow up with us afterwards.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Abby. Thank you, everyone. You will be getting this recording probably later on today. But of course, in the meantime, you can always reach out to our team with any questions.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for joining today. We super appreciate it. And I hope that you learned something new.
Yes. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.